So, welcome back to the broadcast. And I think we figured it out. Last week, I did a video about there was a French whistleblower that's connected to the assassination, the pending assassination of Candace Owens. At the very end of his video, he said that the powers that be, I believe he's speaking about NATO, they're planning a war in 90 days, or now it's less than 90 days, that will be so big and it would take up so much of the media and the press's attention that it would make Candace Owens irrelevant. Candace Owens has really been pushing not just the Charlie Kirk issue, but also the Brigitte Macron gender issue. Now, a lot of people in France are really hanging on every single word that Candace Owens says because they want to know who their leaders really are. I'll be honest with you. If I was in the armed forces and someone told me that my leader, my president, was a man who was married to another man cosplaying as a woman, would I be excited to go and defend them and fight and die on their behalf? The answer is no. And I think the reason they want Candace Owens to stop talking about Brigitte Macron and Charlie Kirk is because every single day she's removing the structure and the stabilization of the French public brick by brick by just giving them the truth and information. See, the rest of the world, especially in Europe, they do not share American values. So that means they don't have the freedom of speech. That's why they watch everything that we say and do because they wish they could themselves. So they depend on us to speak on their behalf. Candace Owens is only one woman, but the amount of people coming out of nowhere bashing her, even this guy I follow on Instagram called the Right Wing Angel, he's coming out and talking bad about Candace. And I'm sitting here like, she's not a politician. She's not your mother. If you don't like what Candace Owens is saying or doing, just don't watch her. Why do you care so much about her? Why are you so heavily invested in what she says? And then you find out a lot of these people are, you can monetize your channel. People will pay you for advertisements. When you do accept money, you do take suggestions because there's no way that this is all just organic. All these people coming out slamming Candace for just asking questions about her friend that got killed and not just shutting up. Since when does anybody just shut up? When is that even normal? When does that make sense? But everyone is literally, I'm watching Tim Pool today, him and Phil Labonte and these other guys. I was like, okay, you guys are talking about take a shot every time Tim says Civil War. Why not take a shot every time he says Candace fucking Owens now? It's like they have CDS, Candace Derangement Syndrome. Do you know how easy it is just to tune out? You don't have to watch her show. You don't have to care what she thinks. She's not an elected official. She doesn't owe you anything. If the woman wants to talk about her friend and her ideas and express them on the internet, what's that got to do with you? But it's deeper than that. Candace is a threat. And she's good at, apparently she's a hell of an investigator. And she's apparently over the target. But this was the video dedicated to her. But listen to what he says at the very end of it.
Half of them are penetrated. Tell her the only safe move is to disappear completely for 90 days. After that, maybe the war they are planning will make her irrelevant.
Remove herself for 90 days, and maybe they might not want to still kill her because the war they are planning would make her irrelevant. This tells me her words, because all she is a podcaster. She doesn't create policy. Her words on her show apparently could decide if we go to war or not. When I say we, I mean NATO. Now, these maniacs have already came up with a budget for 2026. The war in the Ukraine should be over. It'll be over probably by February, unless NATO decides to begin a forever war in the Ukraine that will pretty much stalemate for 10 or more years. And that's what it seems like they're planning. This is, he was just speaking about this actually 16 hours ago. Listen to this.
Have come in, and I hope I can make a few announcements later today. Pledges made today. And when you look at the overall numbers, as I said yesterday, we are now at 4 billion. So that means we are really on track for the 1 billion a month, August, September, October, November. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will reach the 5 billion for the full year. And then for next year, we need for the full year, again, a lot of money, at least 1 billion, maybe even a little bit more than 1 billion a month. It might be around 50, maybe a little bit more for the whole year. When it comes to this crucial US gear, so this is offensive and defensive, including interceptors for the air defense systems, crucial to keep Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure safe. So it is really good that this flow is there, that Europeans are stepping up, and Canada, by the way, also doing a lot here. So really, really glad that this is working.
Now, the Ukraine war is pretty much all but over. Why in the world is he talking about now sending in who's he expecting to fight in the Ukraine and to protect what citizens? There's probably less than 10 million people even left in the Ukraine. Kiev and Odessa, their populations have dwindled. All of their men have went to the front. The countries are nothing but left but women. They're sending senior citizens. The war is over. But even Russia, even Vladimir Putin understands that there is a bigger mission. And
Rank Colonel DGSC
NATO,
Action Division.
He understands that NATO wants war. And he understands this, and he is ready for the challenge. So let's see here. This is what Putin was saying about this situation.
So fighting against Europe. But if Europe wants to fight and they start this fight, then we are ready right now. There is no doubt about this. But the only question is, if Europe starts the war, unleashes this war, because that's not Ukraine. With Ukraine, we use some surgical means. We are trying to be really careful.
What Putin is saying is this. You think we beat the shit out of the Ukrainians? We didn't. We handled the Ukrainians with kid gloves because they're our cousins. There are Ukrainian brothers, and eventually the Ukraine will be back a part of the Russian Federation. We speak the same language. We're kin. We didn't, this is not even a war. For the Russians, this is still an SMO, a special military operation, surgical. They didn't destroy the infrastructure. They didn't just bomb everything out. What they did was they did successfully denazify their government and their military. The Azov Battalion, the other Nazis that were those far right groups that are in the Ukraine. I don't know if they're right or left in the Ukraine, but they're extremists. And they hate the Russians. They're remnants of the Nazis that came over after World War II, the Banderites. They've been removed. They've been liquidated. So now the soldiers that are there are NATO, but they're wearing Ukrainian uniforms. Putin is not an idiot. He understands that this is actually pending. Also, Ukraine is not a part of NATO. Ukraine is not a part of the EU. So if they do come to the Ukraine, to which borders Russia, then the Europeans would technically be the aggressors. Even funding the war in the Ukraine, the West, NATO, are still the aggressors. The Russians are prepared for war. These people, the Europeans and the Americans alike, are not. But the Europeans are willing to throw their male, straight soldiers into the fire and let them become deleted. It's like they purposely want their own men to be liquefied. And then guess what? These countries are going to just be women and children, and all the men are gone. Look at the Ukraine right now. Imagine that situation for all of Europe. Because they're forcibly conscripting people in the Ukraine. What if they eventually have to do that in France, in London, in Greece? What if they have to forcefully put people on the front lines? Because the EU and the NATO military is not very large. And it wouldn't take long for the Russians to wipe them down. And then how long before they invoke Article 5 and try to bring the Americans into it? Now, Trump's no fool, and he has a great relationship with Putin and Lavrov, so we wouldn't walk into this willingly. I just don't know what they have over Trump, if they can get him to join this war or not, but it's pointless. But if you look for it without anyone else's permission, they're literally gearing up to invade the Ukraine and directly fight the Russians this late in the game, knowing that this puts them at a disadvantage. Take a listen.
European Union, and we have two broad topics. One is how to further support Ukraine, and the other one is on our own defense readiness and defense capabilities that we need to build up. It is clear that Russia does not want peace, and therefore we need to make Ukraine as stronger as possible in order to them to be ready to stand up.
The man that was just speaking is Mark Rutte. He's a maniac. Kaja Kallas is insane. These people, remember, they will not be on the front lines, and neither will their children, but they are happy to send your kids to die. What do you mean make the Ukraine is strong? The Ukraine is toast. The war is over. It's been over. This just sending people into the Russian meat grinder serves no purpose at this point. It's just it's like they purposely want to get rid of the population of the Ukraine. Maybe it's because the Europeans want to take the Ukraine. So the easiest way, instead of fighting with the Ukrainians, is have someone else fight them, have someone else wipe them out, and then the Europeans can come in and divide up land. I know this, the black gold and all the best resources in the Ukraine, those are the territories in the east, the Donbass, that the Russians have already taken them, wrote them into their constitution. Those are a part of Russia. So what is left? Do you just want to have something on the border of Russia so you can try to mount an attack later? The Russians aren't going to accept that. They won't even accept the buffer zone at this point. So it doesn't even make any sense. They want death. They want these men. Look at these countries. They're full of white men. They want as many white men to die on both sides as possible. These are not brown people going to fight. These are not yellow people. These are white people, and they're purposely trying to reduce the amount of white men from the gene pool on Earth. And that's how I've been seeing this for a long time. That's the one common denominator. Why do you think the Russians don't want to kill off all those Ukrainians? They're not trying to. They are surgical. That's what Putin was pointing out. But Kaja Kallas is insisting on going to war. She's saying the Russians do not want peace. Do you know what peace in the Ukraine would mean if it happened tomorrow? It would be a strategic defeat for NATO. That would mean it's the end of NATO. NATO is over. If there's peace in the Ukraine, then that means Russia beat all of the 30-something nations in NATO by itself, and they're victorious. So what's the need for NATO? All the money they siphon out of these governments from these people's tax dollars, what is it all going to? Where is the money going? To lose fights or to win? If they've already lost, they just don't want to admit defeat. This would mean the end of NATO altogether if peace is ever accepted by Zelensky, but he's already out the door. They had his offices were raided by the Ukrainian Corruption Council. So, and that doesn't happen when you're in full control. So they're getting him out of there. They're saying the Russians don't want peace. No, NATO doesn't want peace, because that would mean the end of NATO, their money laundering and their scamming of these countries.
For themselves in this very, very difficult time. It could be a pivotal week for diplomacy. We heard yesterday that the talks in America were difficult but productive. We don't know the results yet, but I will talk to the defense minister of Ukraine and as well as foreign minister of Ukraine today. Thank you.
Have you reflected about constraints for Russian army, what you said last week? How small should be Russian army to feel Estonia, Europe safe, according to possible deal?
Well, in general, we don't think it's right to go into, sovereign countries' decisions, how big is their army. But my point was that if there's going to be a pressure on Ukraine's army that hasn't invaded anybody, then there should also be pressure on Russian army. And really, the Russian army is the one that is actually a risk to everybody.
It's so funny how they'll talk about the Russians invading the Ukraine, but they never talk about how Israel has invaded Libya, how they've invaded and occupied Syria, how they invaded Gaza. They never, ever mention anything about the Zionists in Israel, but they'll sit here in the same breath and criticize Russia for literally defending its own border with a country that was bringing in an enemy and letting them set up missiles and bring in weaponry on their own borders. It just amazes me, the hypocrisy and how ridiculous this is. The fact that they think the Russians are idiots or weak. And they've already announced they want to cut up Russia and divide it into all these different territories and pretty much destroy the Russian people, because the Russians are Christian. They're Orthodox. They don't do pride parades. They believe in families, and they're white. And these people want to see them gone.
Now, I'm not talking about European countries, but all the neighboring countries of Russia. If you look at those 19 countries that they have invaded in last 100 years, I mean, they're all at risk. If Russia's army is big, if their military budget is as big as it is right now, they will want to use it again. Thank you.
She's insane. She's a maniac. Again, I think a lot of this rests on the French and what's going on with Macron. And I guess Candace Owens is actually a really big part of this. Also, the Europeans are trying to steal all that Russian money, and that is grounds for war as well. You can't just decide you're going to take money from another country because you don't like their decisions. You can't punish them by stealing from them. There are banking rules, there are laws, and apparently Putin is saying that they are teaching the Ukrainians how to steal, or are the Ukrainians teaching the Europeans how to steal? It's one or the other. But you can't trust the Ukrainians or the Europeans at their word, because they broke Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. And they even admitted, the former chancellor of Germany said we were only agreeing to Minsk 1 and Minsk 2 so we could, have peace temporarily, so we can bring in our military and make the Ukrainian military stronger for the war coming up. So they backstabbed the Russians. They had no intentions on actually keeping the peace. So that's why I have to support Putin, because I would also support us protecting our own borders. I'm always going to be about a country protecting itself. Self-defense is a really big, important thing for me, and I think it should be important to everyone. Everyone should be able to defend themselves. But you have to be in the right. You in Russia was in the right by preventing NATO from bringing weapons onto their border and being able to mount an invasion. And they tried, and they lost. Multiple militaries have been liquidated by the Russians. And this is it. Russia's one nation. All of these countries are a part of NATO. But you want to say that Russia's the bad guy? Absolutely not. We're not buying it. And the negotiation, look at this, Macron and Zelensky. This is on December 1st. Again, whatever is going to happen for the war that's coming in the next 90 days, because apparently it's already scheduled. It seems like the one person that if she doesn't shut up, things will not go according to plans is Candace Owens. I'm just wondering, the only two big things I can see her talking about besides Charlie Kirk and the Zionist connection and all those people that staged his assassination, nothing to do with some guy named Tyler, some gay autistic kid, is what's going on with the Macrons. And she's digging. She's also bringing up the DuPont family and how much French influence still controls our American society and government. And we're none the wiser. These French billionaires. There's just so much corruption in our country, and we have no idea where we're going. We're going wherever these people who we don't even know are pulling the strings, we're going where they tell us to go. And that's why we want to get rid of them. America first means Americans first. The fate of our country should be in the hands of patriots and Americans, and not these globalists or these rich foreigners who are basically trying to control our destiny. It has to remain in the hands of patriotic Americans. As of now, Trump is the best we have, but he's only one guy. We need more. So we need more content creators. We need more people like myself making videos, talking about these subjects. We need more people speaking out. We can't just all lean and wait on every word on a Candace Owens' mouth. We have to look at what she's doing and keep it going. We can't all just depend on her. We can't. So do me a favor, like and subscribe, share the video. I'll be back on with another live in about 20 minutes. Remember, America first, America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.